Hi everybody, it's Christina from Pretty Distressed. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am taking it way back to my roots, to where Pretty Distressed all began. I'm gonna be making over this old buffet with Annie Sloan Chalk Paint and waxes. I'm gonna be doing a really textured look, really distressed, lots of dark wax for that French country look. And I'm also gonna be using a transfer for the very first time today. So if you wanna see how I got this look, just keep watching. Today's video is sponsored by ReDesign with Prima, who provided me with this beautiful decor transfer that I'm applying on my piece today. This was my first time using a transfer and I was super surprised at just how easy it is. They have a wide collection of decor transfers that you can choose from to best fit your piece and style, so make sure that you check out their website. So here is my piece that I am going to be making over today. I'm super excited about this one. It's in rough shape, so I am doing a really distressed, textured look. And the top was in super rough shape, so I decided to give that a little bit of a scuff sand. I am just taking my orbital sander, running this across the top with a 120 grit sandpaper. This is my fancy new Festool sander that you guys have heard me talk about. You could just do this by hand with sandpaper or just with a regular bargain orbital sander. So I'm just wiping off all that dust with a tack cloth and I'm going to start cleaning my piece. I'm cleaning my piece with some warm water and a TSP soap to help get rid of the grime and grease, because this is a really old piece. And when you use a TSP, you always want to rinse it really well with some clean water. And as I was doing that, I could tell this thing was going to be a bleeder. When your finish comes off on your rag, that's a really good indicator that you need to seal it. So I'm using clear shellac to seal this because I want to do some distressing. If you weren't going to do distressing, you could use bin like you've seen me use in other videos that has a white base to it. So I'm just painting this on. I'm using a chip brush that I can throw away when I'm done. I did 2 coats, so just make sure that you let it dry for a couple hours in between coats. Once this is completely dry, I'm taking a 150 sandpaper and I'm just going to scuff this up a little bit, because when shellac dries, it's really shiny and glossy, and in order to get the paint to stick to it really well, I just want to scuff it up a little bit so the surface has some teeth to stick to. I'm going to be using Annie Sloan Chalk Paint in Louis Blue today, and I'm going to be applying it with one of her natural bristle brushes. When I am using this paint, I like to set it upside down for about 20 minutes before I start painting. It just helps all the pigments and stuff distribute evenly, and then I give it a good shake before I paint. I am going to be painting out of the can today because I'm going for a really textured look. So I want my paint to be thick. I'm not going to water it down at all, and I'm going to put my paint on in every direction. Crazy brush strokes, very expressive. This is a super fun way to paint.
Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights. And I really wanna know, if I will ever figure out where the road goes.
I am leaving my hardware on today and I'm just painting right over that. I like to do this for a French country look, and it's super easy and affordable to just keep the hardware that you have.
High, even if the sky is falling down. Jumping from cliffs so high, trusting our wings to fly. Sometimes we're crashing down, but we get up and start from the ground. And I really wanna know, if I I'll keep on searching for my highs.
When I started Pretty Distressed, before this was even really a business or a YouTube channel, Annie Sloan is the paint that I started with. And this technique, this really French country distressed textured look is what I used to do all the time. So it's really fun to be sharing this with you guys and doing it again on my channel. Creating this texture really hides any imperfections in the piece. It really lends itself well to a super old piece like this. And when I put dark wax on it later, it's really going to bring that texture to life and you are going to love it. And this is my first time painting with the liter cans, which are now produced in England. And I think that the paint is a lot thicker than it used to be. You still have to pick it up at a local stockist. So you can just go to anniesloan.com to find the closest store to you. And some of those stores do ship online, but I know that the big anniesloan.com website does not ship. So I went to my local stockist in Brentwood, Tennessee, Allie and Cy, to pick up this can of Louis Blue. I told you guys I had a bleeder. After my first coat, I saw some of those like red tones coming through, so I just grabbed some more shellac and touched up those spots. Don't freak out, this normally does not happen. It's just one of those pieces. As I've mentioned, I'm going to do a lot of dark wax, so that's going to cover up any imperfection. Okay, so after that touch-up shellac dried, I just went in and did my second coat, and as you can see, the coverage is getting a lot better on that second coat, and I just did this one the first way. I did the first one painting in every direction, creating lots of texture. I normally say don't go back and touch spots once you put the paint on because it dries so fast, but when you're going for a really textured look, you can actually go back and play with it and create more texture. Look at that gorgeous texture. I'm going to let this dry for 24 hours before I apply my very first transfer. This is the transfer I'm going to be working with today. This is called Parisian Letter and it's by ReDesign with Prima, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video. This is what my transfer looks like. It is broken up into 3 sections, so when you open it up, they're kind of all rolled up together and have protective paper in between the transfers. So you just open this up and grab whatever transfer you want to start with. I'm only going to be using the top portion today, so I'm just lining that up where I want to. And once I got it lined up, I took that protective back off. You really don't want to do that until you're committed to where you want to put your transfer because they could accidentally stick to your piece a little bit. So this is super easy. I just taped it up to kind of hold it where I wanted it, and you just start rubbing this little stick all over your transfer and you can kind of pull it back to see if it's sticking. And here's a really easy way to tell, like where it's black, that means it is not stuck to the piece yet. It becomes like gray and almost transparent as it's sticking to the piece and releases from the plastic that it's on. So I just kind of kept peeling it back a little bit and you could see where it was sticking and then place it back down and then just go rub it some more so that it will completely stick to your piece. I was shocked how easy this was. I've always been really intimidated about trying a transfer and it was just so much fun and so easy. I don't know why it's taking me this long to try it out. It probably would be a good idea for a beginner to start out on like a completely flat surface, and this would have been easier if I removed my hardware, but I painted my hardware. So I just kind of cut around the words that were going to be laying on the hardware so that I could lay it flat onto the piece. It's definitely easier to work with if the transfer is laying flat on your piece. I did have to apply mine to these little ridges on the drawers. It really wasn't that hard. You just kind of have to go in sections and push it up a little bit into the ridges, but when I took it off, it looked great. And just a quick tip, you can choose whichever section you want to do. You don't have to do it all in the order that it's in. You can cut it all up and put it wherever you want. And I moved this last piece down a little bit because it was writing that I wanted hanging off the bottom, and it wasn't close enough the way that I lined my piece up. So I could actually just move that down, and it looked like I didn't mess anything up. It looked like it was meant to be that way. Like I said, I'm only using this one piece of the transfer today, so I have 2 other ones that I can save and use later. So I'm just putting those away, and I'm going to keep them in a nice temperature regulated place. And before I seal my transfer, I am going to take a soft cloth and just lightly press down on any areas that might be sticking up. I am going to be sealing this with a water-based top coat. This is General Finishes Flat Out Flat. You can use any water-based product that you want, whether it's a top coat or a wax. I am not sure if Annie Sloan Chalk Paint wax is oil-based or water-based, but it smells a lot like mineral spirits, so I was just assuming it's oil-based. I couldn't find anything on the internet about that. So I just decided it was going to be best to seal it with a top coat, and then knew that I could put wax on top of that. So this stuff is really easy to work with. I'm applying it with a zebra square brush, which really helped me get into the nicks and crannies of the piece. This levels out really well and it dries down matte, and it looks very similar to wax, and I knew I was going to be able to put wax on top of it and it would make the piece look very cohesive. The instructions included in my transfer were super helpful, and it was all I needed to get this applied. I let that dry overnight, and now I'm going to seal the whole piece with Annie Sloan Chalk Paint Wax and Clear, and I'm going to be using my Waxwell brush from Coda Artisans. This is nice and big and is going to get the job done fast. You don't have to apply wax with a wax brush. You can just use a lint-free cloth, but this has a lot of detail on it, and when I have a piece with a lot of detail, I like to use a wax brush because I think it just makes the process easier. So I am just rubbing this on in every direction, doing circles back and forth, up and down, because of how textured my piece is. Once I get a section complete, I'm going to take a lint-free cloth. These are my Intex ones that I love, that I talk about all the time. And I just wipe it down with light pressure just to make sure I don't have an excess of wax buildup, because if you do, it'll take forever for it to cure. If you guys would be interested in a video that just covers every single detail of waxing, let me know and I will make a dedicated video for you.
Just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know that I would? 'Cause I'm just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? Forever. 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 I watch you as you sleep. You don't know I'm looking. With you everything's complete. Do you know how much I love?
And I did add clear wax over top of my water-based sealer to make the whole piece look cohesive. And now I am going to distress with a 150 sandpaper. When I distress, I just hit up every edge that I can. I hit up the hardware. I just really bring out any detail in the piece. There's really no right or wrong way to distress. It's up to artistic interpretation. I just like to hit up the edges and the detail because I think it looks more natural. I tend to stay away from the flat surfaces because whenever I do that, I think it looks unnatural. But it is up to you. You can take this as far as you want. I got pretty crazy and distressed this thing up a lot because I wanted it to look really old.
I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment.
After I was done distressing, I just took a tack cloth and wiped down all my dust before I started with my dark wax. So excited for this. I'm going to be applying this with just an Annie Sloan wax brush that I have. And I like to have steel wool on hand, and I'll show you why in a second. But I just got a very, very tiny amount of dark wax on here. And I'm just starting by rubbing this on the edges because those are the parts that I like to shade the most, is around the edges of the piece. A little bit of this goes a long ways. I usually cut my dark wax with some clear wax, but I was running out of clear wax, so I just decided to put this on full strength because I was like, hey, I'm going for really textured and distressed, so let's do this. And once I get most of that wax off is when I go in these flat parts and I just kind of lightly shade just to hit up that texture that I have. This is when I grab a piece of my fine steel wool and I use that to blend in my dark wax. You could definitely just use a rag here. I have just always done this technique, so I'm doing it again today. And I have another tip for you. If you take it too far with your dark wax, you can always take some clear wax on a rag and wipe it back a little bit. I went a little bit too far on this door, so I had to go back and buff that out a little bit. Again, if you would like to see a really detailed video on the dark waxing process, I can do that for you guys. Just comment down below and let me know if you want to see it.
I still dream of you, buddy.
I dark waxed this entire piece, doing this whole system that I just showed you, going really dark and heavy around the edges and then lightly over any flat surface. I even did this on the top and the legs. Once I was finished, I just grabbed a clean, lint-free cloth and I wiped down my entire surface just to make sure everything was nice and blended and that I didn't have any tacky or sticky spots. Oh boy, this was a long one. Are you guys still with me? Just to remind you, here is what we started off with, and here it is now. I love this piece. I love the French country look. This blue is amazing. I can't believe what a difference the transfer makes. It just elevates it to a whole another level. And it was so easy. I can't believe it took me this long to try transfer, but I am definitely a fan. You'll definitely be seeing transfers again on my channel. I love the distressed look. I love the dark wax. I love how old it looks. I just love it, love it, love it. Thank you guys for joining me for today's project. I had so much fun on this one. It was really cool to go back and use the techniques and the paints that I first started out with. I will be back with another project next week. Thanks for being here, you guys, and I will see you next time.
This time is different, so this